Namaskar, my dear students. I'm Miss Payal of ITL Public School. I'm going to take a class of class 10th Economics. Now let's see what I'm going to begin with. I'm going to tell you a story about my friend. Now she stays in the United States. One day she gave me a call and asked me how I was. I told her I'm doing really good and it's all pleasant over here. I asked her the same question and she replied me back. But then her second question was, how is India doing? And I had to think a little bit. Because now she was asking me about the entire country, about the entire nation. How could I understand that question and how could I reply her back? I do not know about how India is doing, how everyone is doing in the country. But then I had to utilize an economic concept that I had learned and I was able to answer her back. So I had to recall a word, a term, which is very commonly used in economics. That is referred to as the gross domestic product or the GDP. So basically, I told her how the economy is functioning by just telling her that the GDP is rising day by day for India. And GDP is nothing but about the production of our economy. So then she was able to understand my answer too. So well, students, today, can you imagine which chapter we're going to start today of Economics class 10th? Yes, you're absolutely right. We'll be studying about the structure of the Indian economy, which is there in chapter 2 of our economics book. So come, join me in this study. One day, I went to a restaurant and I ordered myself a cup of tea and a cookie for myself. The waiter came after a point of time and he served me my order. And I was very happy with my cup of tea and my cookie. Well then, but do you think this is the tea and the the cookie which was served out to me at that point of time, which I can see, I can touch, I can actually consume it, right? So it's something which is very tangible to me. And economists, they term these goods which are tangible as goods, right? GOODS. But then, what am I doing over here? Probably trying to teach you something, a new concept. Is that tangible? Or that waiter who had served me my food over there? And think about the person who had actually prepared the tea for me over there. Are they not important to us? Would the tea have come to me until unless the cook had prepared it for me? Right? No. Or the waiter had served me? Not at all. So these people who are actually serving us, right? They are rendering some kind of a good to us, but then that is not tangible to us. It's an intangible thing that they are providing to us. And that is what economists term it as services. So we have products which are being classified as goods and services. So I hope you are able to understand and differentiate between the two terms over here. Of our second chapter in, so here we are of our second chapter in economics, and in front of you, you can see there are some people depicted in this figure. The picture 1 over here, it shows how a farmer is involved in his agricultural work. Picture 2 is depicting how a person is involved in quarrying and mining purpose. And the picture 3 is depicting actually a doctor. So are you able to differentiate between the products being into goods and services from this picture? And all these three professionals are basically doing some different kind of activity, which are completely out of, there's no relationship between them as of now. Because we can see the farmer who is actually growing the crops, right? He might not be, he's just utilizing the resources of nature. Person number 2, he is actually extracting something from the nature, right? When you're going into quarrying, mining, or any kind of, manufacturing, he's trying to make something out of it, process something. So he is actually working with what that farmer had actually produced or what the natural resources are available, and he's just extracting them out. Great. And the third one is actually a person who's actually rendering some service. It is the product which is intangible to us. We cannot see it happening, cannot touch that thing happening. When the doctor is providing you his services, he's charging a fees for it, right? He's not giving you it for free. But then he is actually giving you a service. So these are actually the three different sectors of our economy. We'll have to study them in detail to be able to arrive at the conclusion that how production is actually taking place in the Indian economy. So let's see. Here again, you have the various kind of activities which takes place in our economy. So you can see over here, we have the airline over here. They're also rendering us a service. The aviation sector, right? It's a service that we can move from one place to another. Okay, when you're going for some shopping, you are actually buying something, right, which is tangible. So that is a tangible thing, right? So it will be categorized as a good. Say banking, telecommunication, how would you categorize them as? Again, a service is being rendered in this kind of a scenario. Great. Now that you've understood what is a good and a service, and that there are different people who are doing different kind of activities, it's very crucial to understand that when we're talking about the entire nation, we have to bring them all together. And hence, to study the Indian economy in a very crisp manner, we have to differentiate these activities. So, we have the sectors of the Indian economy. Here we'll be studying about the three types of classification. Number one, on the basis of the economic activity. Number two, on the basis of their organization. And number three, on the basis of their ownership. Activity means, the economic activity means how you're going to conduct the activity. And on that basis, we have the primary, secondary, and the tertiary sector, which we had just seen in the previous picture of how the persons over here are, indulging in their work. The number one, the farmer is actually doing some agricultural thing. He's with the natural resources he's working out, right? So that will be categorized as a primary sector activity. Number two, when the person is into quarrying, right? Or he is utilizing, he's extracting the natural resource from there, and he is going to process it something into something different. That will be categorized as a manufacturing industry. And number three, the doctor is the example over here, who is going to provide some service. So there will be services which is actually, it could be direct in nature or indirect in nature. So suppose I am having a cookie today, right? How is this cookie reaching to me? We'll be studying about that. There are some factors, some services involved in this cookie coming to me and I'm able to consume this cookie. So, well, this is how you're able to classify the industry on the basis of economic activity. Then comes on the basis of organization and ownership that we'll take up in the consequent chapter. Well, so when we're talking about the sectors of the Indian economy, here we are talking about the processing of it. That first, we are into the primary sector, where we are involved in agriculture, mining, fishery. So these are the components and examples where it is depicting that you are working with the natural resource directly. So anybody who is into direct contact with the natural resource will be categorized, will be working in the primary sector. Number two, once you get the primary sector good. So for example, here I'm talking about my cookie. For my cookie, I had to get the wheat. So where is that wheat coming from? From the farmer. So the farmer gave me the wheat, right? So that agricultural practice will be categorized as the primary sector activity. Number two, this had to be produced. After the wheat, what do? They have to produce it in the manufacturing sector. It has to go to the factory. So the wheat goes to the factory and the cookie is then being produced. But then this secondary sector is great. He's doing the work and he's following up with the primary sector. But then, will it just remain in the factory? How will it reach me? Will I go to each and every factory to search for the products that I need? Definitely not. It's not going to work out like that. I don't have so much time. So the product has to actually come near me, and that is through some services. So third and the topmost portion of your triangle shows you the tertiary sector activity, where this cookie has to be actually packed, right? It has to be transported and it will reach some shop from where I can go and purchase it. So the consumers are actually the last link of this production chain. So again, let's recall. So you are talking about the wheat, right? So when the wheat is being produced by the farmer, he is actually working as the primary sector industry. It has to then go to the manufacturing sector, into the factory, where more value will be added to it, and the product will be finally there in front of you. Then it has to be packed, it has to be advertised, it has to be transported to the consumer. And the consumer will then finally pay some money for it to purchase it. So this packet of cookie, say it's worth 50 rupees. I am purchasing this, and this is my final product of this entire production chain, right? And I am paying 50 rupees for it. This 50 rupees, my dear children, it will be calculated and moving into my GDP. So this is how all the sectors are actually interlinked together. Just one product example I gave you. You can see so many examples around you of how the three sectors are actually interconnected amongst each other and how GDP is calculated. So in short, GDP is nothing but the value of all final goods and services produced in an economy in an accounting year. So I hope you were able to understand this concept. Thank you for the class, students.